All right, our very first subject here, we have Cade McNamara and Brendan Sullivan. So, if you aren't aware, a couple weeks or last week, I think it was, we talked about how the first scrimmage happened and neither quarterback looked good. And Brendan Sullivan actually looked a little bit better, but he was going against the second team and third team defense. So it was like, neither quarterback is looking great. Is Iowa back to their old habits with their offense? Now there is a whole lot of chatter going on out there that Cade McNamara is not exactly who Kirk Ferentz is hoping he would be. Kirk Ferentz made a bit of a comment that said something along the lines of like, we want to bring out the guy that we saw on tape, which is leading many to believe like Cade McNamara might not be that quarterback that they thought they were getting from Michigan in 2021. Now, he's had a ton of injuries. I mean, the
Mhm.
guy, poor guy, like he's been in and out of football for so much, and you can't blame him if he is, limping around out there with like all these injuries. So we really do feel for him. But at the end of the day, this Iowa team, they want to get their offense humming. They want to get their offense rolling this year because they know the defense is going to be spectacular. The defense is going to be fantastic, as it always is. So Zach, I'm just going to go to you straight up with it. Like, who is the better option here for Iowa? From everything you've looked at, everything you've seen, practice reports, what Kirk Ferentz has said, all these things, who do you feel like is the best option for Iowa this season? The experienced veteran, Cade McNamara, or the new guy coming in? He has started at
Mhm.
Northwestern, but obviously not at the level in a Big Ten championship game like Cade McNamara has. Who is the better option for Iowa this year?
Yeah, if you asked me this, well, we talked about this a few weeks ago of who we thought would win the starting job, and I was 100% confident in Cade McNamara, that he was going to come back from injury, that he was going to learn the offense, that the new offense with Tim Lester. I I am going to pick Brendan Sullivan, and the reason why, and I'm thinking back, I always go back to Ohio State connections. JT Barrett, when he was a freshman, was one of the best quarterbacks I had seen ever play at Ohio State. Like he was crisp with the ball, crisp with decisions. He had a really good deep ball receiver. So, and he had his deficiencies for sure. But then he got hurt, and I'm not sure he ever really returned to form. Right now, he had the benefit of a lot of talent around him, and I think Ryan Day got him back into that pre-injury form up until, ironically, against Iowa, where he threw like a bajillion picks. Josh Jackson just scored again. Um, but the reality is, I think I'm wondering if that's where Cade McNamara is. Is he's been injured, he's been on the shelf, and he's just not the same guy. And maybe there's some of the yips, maybe there's other things going on. But it just seems like Brendan Sullivan is there and he's competing and he's rising. He's young. You can invest in him. That would be my guess. Maybe it's one of those things where you invest in him and then maybe McNamara snaps out of it. So Wisconsin had a similar situation, I think, with Tanner McAvoy and Joel Stave, I think, where they like Stave had the yips and they're like, we're going Tanner McAvoy, and it's like, this is not working. And they finally went back to Stave. He kind of worked it out. I wonder if it'll be similar to something like that.
Yeah, I think, in my opinion, you go with the more electric guy in this offense. Experience is great, but at the end of the day, both these guys have experience playing in big games. What? Brendan Sullivan threw almost 100 passes last year. Now, it's not, like I said, getting to a Big Ten championship game like Cade McNamara was, but if you're not seeing out of Cade McNamara what you saw out of him when he was at Michigan in 2021, it's probably not there. He's been there for what, 2, 3 years now, Zach? Like,
Yeah.
if you
Yeah.
haven't seen it, it's probably not there anymore, which stinks, right? I don't like that for
Mhm.
Cade McNamara. But if we're being honest, this Iowa offense needs a playmaker. They need somebody who can spark light the team. Now, if Brendan Sullivan is out there throwing picks every other play, No, you don't start
Yeah.
Brendan Sullivan, right? I mean, if he can't take care of the ball and he's throwing picks every other play, if he's fumbling it, things like that, if he's being loose with the ball in the pocket, then yeah, you don't play him. But from everything we're hearing coming out of Tim Lester, I mean, Tim Lester's talking about like this guy's a natural in the pocket. This guy can take the twos and go up against the ones and get first downs. And so like if you can take inferior talent, and I'm not trying to be rude to the Iowa, twos, but you're going against the ones, which arguably the ones are, that much better than the
Mhm.
ones on offense for Iowa. Like, if
Yeah.
you can take the twos on offense for Iowa and go up against that vaunted ones defense for Iowa, get first downs, move the ball down the field, I mean, at the end of the day, I think that's what you have to go with if you're Iowa. Maybe, sure, you give Cade McNamara a little bit of time versus Illinois State. But, I mean, even Kirk Ferentz was talking about making a package, putting a package together for Brendan Sullivan. Zack,
Mhm.
we saw a team last year put a package together for their younger quarterback, and arguably that quarterback would have been starting by the end of the year in Devin Brown over Kyle McCord. Now, Kyle McCord got lucky because Devin Brown got injured, um, but at the end of the day, like it was trending that way to where Devin Brown is possibly going to take over for Kyle McCord if Devin Brown didn't get injured. And so that's how I look at this situation. I'm like, if Brendan Sullivan is a playmaker, if he's confident, if he's not turning the ball over every other play, I think you got to go with him.
Yeah, and I think just to follow that up, I feel for Cade too. I the question. So when you posed the topic a week ago, and I read a little bit into it, I was like, it's really hard to tell because it's a new offense because he's come back from injury. You're reintegrating him back, and so like I'm like, man, I feel like he needs a little bit more time. But now another week is gone by, and it does seem like Brendan Sullivan is separating. And if he's separating a little bit, and Cade McNamara is struggling still, like I at some point experience experience only matters if it helps you, and if it's not helping you, um, then it shouldn't be factored.
Well, and if you can show that it's helping you, right? Like it should
Yeah,
help him with his decision making. But from what we're reading, it doesn't sound like the decision making is that much better than Brendan Sullivan.
yeah, yeah. And so at that point, I think you invest in the younger guy. I think one other stat. It's not a stat, but it's looking at their stats from a year ago. Cade McNamara really struggled against honestly very weak competition. Whereas you look at what Brendan Sullivan did, yes, he struggled against Iowa, which is like the best defense that they faced last year. And then he was pretty decent against Maryland. And he struggled against Penn State, but that's Penn State. Like Brendan Sullivan put up a better resume a year ago against much better teams than Cade did. Now, granted, he got hurt and they didn't have a lot of offensive weapons, but honestly, neither did Northwestern. So I'm just I think you ride at this point with what's being told out of camp. I think Sullivan is the better play. Oh, you're muted, Jr.
Said Philip here with quite the comparison. I was focused on getting Philip's comment up here and not unmuting myself. He says Brendan Sullivan equals JJ McCarthy. Now I don't know if I go that far. JJ McCarthy was a top 10 pick, so I don't, JJ McCarthy's pretty good. But if you were talking about the young quarterback who's going to come in and supplant the older vet that has more experience, I don't know if you're wrong, Philip. I mean, I feel like against Illinois State, you're going to see Cade McNamara start. But if Cade McNamara doesn't come out there and start scoring touchdowns, I think it's a pretty short leash. I mean, like, Zack, you tell me if Cade McNamara goes out there, first pass, incomplete, maybe it's over the guy's head. Next pass, it hits the receiver, but it's a bad ball, and the receiver doesn't hold on to it. Third pass, interception, and they go back to the sidelines. Do you put in Brendan Sullivan after that? Is that how short the leash is, or are you like, no, you got to ride with Cade for at least the first half?
I might give him one more series, but I think it is short. I think it has to be, and I mean it might be even one of those things similar to what Ryan Day said he would do, which he didn't, which is
was gonna
alternate,
say what
alternate.
Ryan Day said he would do. He did not
Right,
do.
right. I'm not
Jim
saying.
Harbaugh did what he said he would do with
Yeah.
JJ McCarthy and Cade McNamara.
Oof, that's
That's the true story here. Ryan Day is a liar, and Jim Harbaugh is the truth. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yankee Wolverine is just smiling from ear to ear right now.
Yeah, he is so glad that I just said that.
Oh man, yeah. No, I think it's short leash. Short leash.
I think so too. I don't know if it's quite that short, but I think so too. I think you have to have a short leash with him.